Hope everybody is doing well. We've got another edition of the online dinner party coming your way from right here in Durham, North Carolina, as we like to call it, the Bull City. And I know a lot of people are paying attention to a number of things going on here and around the world, because definitely folks are following the political landscape and some people are following the sports landscape as well. So we do have a number of things that are going on in that space. I know that New Hampshire was yesterday, and both Trump and Biden won. So it looks like they're heading into a rematch of the last election and all in that space. And a lot of people are more concerned around sports. I know that my alma mater, Marquette, will be playing again this evening. We suffered two losses, and then we bounced back with two wins. So hopefully we can continue these winning ways with the game against DePaul this evening and all along those lines. And of course, a lot of people are enjoying the change in weather right here in Durham, North Carolina. We had a little bit of a cold snap and a cool snap, but now it feels like downright spring-like. It's like around 60 or 70 degrees or something like that. So it is definitely not typical winter weather. And I'm sure that may be one of my first guests, and I've got a number of guests that'll be joining me as we talk about life lessons learned and how they got into their different fields and all along those lines. But many people that watch this show or know me personally know that my dad is an artist, that being Jim Lee, who is a well-known artist here in the area, does a lot with photography and a number of art mediums, including some sound sculptures and other things along those lines. So he definitely does some art that has political statements and things in that way. And he's definitely had things at the Golden Belt as well as the Durham Arts Council with the Durham Art Guild, and definitely some other places as well. And my first guest is actually an artist that probably knows that pops of mine and all along those lines, and definitely knows some of the other art members of the community, that being Nick Dahlstrom. And I hope that I pronounced the last name right and all along those lines and all in that space. But definitely glad to have you here. I know that some of my friends that are from the Pennsylvania area, and I believe that you've got that area as well. And one of my brother's dear friends, and I have other friends that are from that area, they weren't too happy because neither of their teams made it in football. The Eagles got eliminated, and definitely the Pittsburgh Steelers didn't do that well either. And I'm not sure which one of those was your team of choice, since I know a lot of people in that Pennsylvania area usually root for one or the other. It's kind of like New York with the Jets and the Giants. So I'm not sure which of those ways you were going and all along those lines, or if you have a favorite in this particular game that we've got coming up with Baltimore and Kansas City and San Francisco and Detroit. But definitely glad to have you here with me, Nick, and everything, and definitely looking forward to people learning more about you as an artist and an individual. Like I said, I definitely know that I've seen your stuff at things like Centerfest and definitely other places that I've been at, and all along those lines, because I've been involved with Centerfest for a number of years as an MC, as well as the Eno and other places. So just was reaching out to some of my friends that are in the art space. I love giving them a chance to talk about what they're all about and all in that space. So Nick, if you want to share a little bit about yourself, we can do that. And definitely you can tell me if you were a Eagles or a Steelers fan growing up, since I did see that you had some Pennsylvania roots and all along those lines.
Yeah, I am definitely a Steelers fan. I grew up about 30 minutes outside of Pittsburgh, so um, definitely hard Steelers fan. Yeah, Pennsylvania is an interesting place because it's Pittsburgh and Philly on the two ends, and then there's like the Amish right in the middle that divides them. So it's a very interesting landscape. Yeah, kind of dropped off football a little bit, but the past few years I know the Steelers haven't been doing so hot, unfortunately. But yeah, is your dad Jim Lee?
That is my dad. Jim
Oh
Lee
my
is
God.
my dad. Yes, that is my dad.
I just made that connection when you were giving your intro, and I was like, oh no way. Yeah, I've met Jim a few times. But yeah, so I hail from Pittsburgh. I went to school in Michigan. I moved down here in 2014, so I've been here a decade and give it 2 or 3 months. I've been here, full 10 years. So definitely made some roots in the art scene. I think my biggest claim to fame community wise is I've had a figure drawing group going for about, 5 or 6 years now. So I started that when the Carrick was still around, and I know your dad was, on the
Yeah.
board of that and everything. So, yeah, I mean, that's been going strong. I've kind of moved to the Fruit, and now to where I have my own studio space at Golden Belt. So
And what got you into the arts? Were you the kid that was always drawing off on the side when you were growing up, or did you get into the arts later in life? I know that my dad was probably always interested in the arts, but I don't think he
Mhm.
an artist till more into his well into his adult years and all in that space. So just wondering what got you drawn into the arts and whether you were always an artist at heart.
Yeah, I was always drawing, for sure. I never really like envisioned myself like as an artist. I think, in high school, especially when you're starting to like think about college, and you're like, all right, what am I going to major in? And that I in high school, I never really liked. I know like kind of your junior and senior year, you could take a lot more study halls because if you filled credits out, you could have a lot more free time. And instead of doing study halls, I just took art classes. And so in college, I was like, well, I can start. I just kind of started taking more art classes, and yeah, I really like drawing. And then I studied abroad in Italy for art, and I think that's kind of when I had that like aha moment, like what it actually means to be like an artist and not just somebody who likes to draw and dabbles in the art, but really kind of start thinking about the art and how it's more kind of thinking about like as a historian, kind of a conversationalist, if you will, because art has been this like ongoing human conversation since even prehistory. We've been drawing since before we've been writing. So kind of getting the spirit, the social, the political, everything's kind of been written down on paper and made art of. So that's really kind of inspired me, and I started really actually like making some good stuff, I think, around then, and just kind of evolving from drawing and painting as a hobby to actually like more of a passion at that point. So
That makes a
that's
lot of sense and everything. And you mentioned that you were inspired by the Renaissance styles and particularly those around Italy. So who were some of those artists that inspired you and what was it like studying in Italy? Because definitely that is a place that's on my wish list to go because I definitely have some things that are on the bucket list and definitely I know
yeah.
the rich art history that is existing there. But who were some of the people that inspired you and what about Italian style art or Renaissance drew you into that particular style?
I mean, there's the classics, like Michelangelo and all them, but Botticelli too was pretty awesome. It was, I think the most interesting thing was how artists weren't just painters, like they were also architects and kind of designed the city. So when I was in Florence and I stayed in the historic district, it was all around you and things, and like it was living and breathing, and like you saw how the arts actually like lifted up that whole city. So I don't know if it was like, I mean, they're all great, but Giotto and everyone, but like it was definitely more of like the vibe and how it was like a community thing, and how it was very pro Florence, and we went to different cities, and like how each city kind of competed almost through the arts by like what next level can they do. And that's kind of what brought the Renaissance up, was coming out of the Dark Ages and trying to like push both scientific and artistic methods forward, to understanding. I mean, that's why things kind of look flat and stacked all the way to Michelangelo, where you have that like, oh, like this looks like a real scene, and forcing perspective and stuff. So I think there's a lot of psychology and science combined there, and it's a real like application of the human spirit, if you will.
Yeah, no doubt. Going to bring in some of the other guests as well
Yeah.
very shortly. But one of the things that I was curious about, and definitely some of the other artists may have some things to think about this as well. But one thing that even on this network, people have said is that they think of art and art education as being a waste of time because they're thinking that artists can't make money. And you've actually dedicated yourself to being an artist. So, what is your answer to those that are critical of art as a field and everything? Because I know that even one of the founders of this network, sometimes I think he's being slightly sarcastic, but sometimes I think he might actually be serious, is of this notion that art education is a waste. And I'm going like, no, the art has actually helped with critical thinking and a number of other things. But I just wanted your take on that.
Yeah, I think it's hard to actually quantify it because it's a very like right brain left brain thing, and the right brain is a lot more visual, spatial, creative, but it's very silent and it doesn't talk out loud, so it's very hard to kind of measure. It's just it's like recess. it seems like a waste of space, but when you don't learn how to be creative and kind of connect dots, even though you can't like verbally say what dots and how the process is happening, I think it just kind of puts people in boxes and makes things, you don't have those creative breakthroughs. Even if there's so many people that when I was taking art classes came from the science just to like kind of break away. And I think that's super important, where like, even if your passion isn't art, still having like an understanding of drawing or writing or, some creative outlet helps you like stretch that creativity muscle, regardless if you're actually going to like, take painting seriously and try to make a career out of it. But even just having a passion about it and learning how to do that correctly, I think is super important. And like, I mean, creativity spans everything we do in society.
Yeah, no doubt about that and everything. I'm going to bring in Jay Leonard. He's a author and all along those lines, and also Robert Ginsburg. But definitely Joseph Leonard is a author and has written a number of things. And actually, he was saying that he's a Detroit fan. So we'll bring him in and all along those lines. So how are you doing, Joseph? And share a little bit about your thoughts around the arts and creativity. Because as I was saying, I've heard some people that are critical, thinking that the arts is a waste of time. And I am a fan. And anybody that knows my dad knows that he is a fan as well of what some people call art activism, or using the arts as a form of activism to get out some social messages and all along those lines. But I just wanted your take, because you've written some books that are definitely provocative in thought and all in that mind. So your thoughts around art as a activism tool, and just share a little bit about your own books and what you've got going on.
Yeah, well, two things. First, is it sunny? It's 60 degrees, which is definitely better than Detroit, but is it sunny? Because it's rainy again today.
No, we're talking clouds here, so it's a little bit on the cloudy side. So
well,
it's not sunny.
I need to hop a plane to Vegas then, not there. Okay, anywhere where there's some sun, I'm getting seasonal affective disorder, because it's been so dreary here lately. And the other thing is, my entire lifetime, finally the Detroit Lions actually amount to something. Oh, it's like, this has got to be the Matrix. This can't be reality. But as to your question about arts, absolutely positively, I think education needs a balance, and arts are great for those who actually can do it well enough to earn a living at it, not just claim, oh, I'm a constantly starving artist, please give me handouts. That's a whole other issue. If you're good enough at it to earn a living, that's great. Now, like my father, like your father in music, Ted Leonard Jr. and the Polka Kings was, pretty well known all across the northeastern states, and toured, and you could still find his vinyl 33s and 45s and 8-track tapes on eBay. So I very much appreciate, and grew up in a family that understood the importance of arts, even like Nick said, if you're not going to go that route as a mechanism as your living or career.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. This is for both of you, and I'm bringing in Robert very shortly as well. But one of the other things that I know people are wondering about, and you just kind of alluded to it, Joseph, is making a living as an artist. And some people think that that is next to impossible. And a lot of times people think about that work-life balance. And I know a number of artist friends of mine that also have to drive for Uber, drive for Lyft, do DoorDash or Grubhub in order to make ends meet, and all along those lines. So I'd love to hear from both of you how you manage, and if you're able to manage enough just off of your artistic careers, or do you have to do other things? I know a lot of people will say that they sometimes even have to teach and everything. So I just wanted your thoughts. I'll start with you, Nick, and then, like I said, we'll bring in Robert very shortly as well. But how do you manage that whole notion of having to pay the bills? Because we know that it's great we can sell the artwork, but that's not always the case immediately. Sometimes you got to hustle them and get those clients to buy the art. So are you able to do it just strictly off of the art, or do you have to go out and maybe do DoorDash, or maybe have a side gig or even a teaching gig?
Yeah, so I definitely do not make that much money off of my art. I work construction full time as a kind of a project manager, so that's my full time job. But I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong. I mean, kind of going back to Joseph's point, I don't think there really is too much many artists who are like who claim to be a starving artist because they do have a hustle, and then like I don't say the art is the side hustle, but you have your main job that lets you have space, because I mean you have to rent a studio space or like have a space to create and things like that. That being said, I think pricing your art is always kind of difficult. Like the painting behind me, when I first painted it, I would have priced it at like $500, but breaking that down, like it took me about like 60, 80 hours to complete. And if you break that down, like if I cranked out like one painting like that a week, if that was even feasible, like I can't even live off of $500 a week. Like nobody can in these days. So and that's not even like counting like the supplies, the materials, the rent, and all that stuff. So you do kind of have to like build up, and so you do have to find that job that kind of allows you the energy and the space. I don't think I would want to have a creative job like as like a graphic designer or something, because I would probably get burnt out on creativity and drawing, and I like to kind of keep that for myself. And it does allow me to make stuff that I like making as well, instead of trying to be more commercialized and like pandering to other people. Like there's so many times where people are like, oh, would you paint this for me? And I was like, man, I'm not really like into that. That's not me. So I think kind of having that day job, if you do have that balance, actually gives you then the freedom to create what actually like is inspiring to you and kind of the motifs that you like to play with. But it is still an energy suck. I wish I had a lot more time in the studio and energy. It's always a give and take, but I think that's life, and you try to make room for what you have.
Along those same lines, I'd like to hear from both you and Joseph. I'm bringing in Robert as well and learn more about him as well. But what is your take when people are not willing to pay the worth of the artist? I've had this conversation with my dad and have with other people as well, but there are a lot of people that want you to sell them the art and not necessarily buy it at what that worth is, and all along those lines. You just kind of alluded to it, and a lot of times people don't necessarily want to understand the amount of time that it goes in to creating the artist. They won't ask the plumber for free work, but they'll ask the artist for free work in a quick heartbeat, and all along those lines. So I just wanted your take on that, Nick, and definitely if Joseph, you want to jump in, and definitely I want to introduce Robert to the audience and learn more about him as well. But definitely if you'll share your take on that.
It's interesting because I think it kind of harkens back to your original question, like why are the arts kind of getting cut out of schools and programs and stuff? And I think it's kind of the same thing where art seems very frivolous and something you put on your wall to decorate your house, while it can like do so much more. It can provoke thought, it can provoke social issues, politics. There's so much it can do, and yet you said you met me or like probably bumped into me at Center Fest and Eno Fest. I'm having a bad relationship with those craft fairs. I don't think I quite fit in, and I've talked to other artists where they make I would make prints of my stuff because they're like, oh, it's a little bit cheaper instead of the paint, because like I can't even afford my own paintings if I were to buy them, which is all of that. But I make prints, so I'm like, oh, you can kind of still have the art. But I've had this interaction where they're like, oh, how much are your paintings? And I tell them, and they're like, well, I can't afford that. And I was like, well, I do have prints of my stuff. They're a little bit more affordable. And then they say, well, I only want original works. And I was like, well, it seems like we're at an impasse here, because if you can't afford, like, the original works are a lot more important than original. So it kind of comes down to that, where the value is is kind of like in the viewer, a little bit. So
with rarity and scarcity, there is obviously supply and demand dictates higher cost. So I mean, and I'm upset, Nick, you won't do my portrait. I was going to ask you to do my portrait. But
But he does a portrait for you and everything. But just really quickly, and before I get to Robert, definitely want to learn more about Robert as well and everything. But Joseph, some of your stuff is very provocative in the sense that it is political and all along those lines, because definitely Terror Strikes has some political overtones. So do you find that that is something that people are able to relate to, or are they not as able to relate to it as well? Because sometimes people are scared off by things that are either political or religious or a number of other ways that people can deal with things. But definitely, I know that there are some folks that be like, and I've got friends that have written books, including some around their sexuality and their church mission and all along those lines. And sometimes people are scared of those kind of books. Carl Kenny is a friend of mine, and I know he's written around that topic as well. But I just wanted your take on some of the things that you write about, and if you'll share a little bit about that and even what Terror Strikes is about.
yeah, well, Terror Strikes Coming Soon to a City Near You has both religion and politics. And there are a lot of people who say two things to never talk about: religion and politics. Well, I say hogwash. It's we should talk religion and politics, but learn to do so in a fruitful way, uh, a non-confrontational, to where we automatically get in our corners and our dander up, and everything becomes fighting words. So yeah, the reason why people say never talk religion and politics is they weren't ever taught that you can talk about those things in a civil way. Right? So yeah, I mean, I get both extremes. People love me. I also have to have call block software because I get death threats. So but as far as like again, growing up with my dad being involved in music, I wrote and recorded for a while, but was never good enough, as I alluded to. And as like Nick said, you generally have to have a primary job, and art can often, unless if you're lucky and go viral with stuff and can sell a bunch at a good cost, that only can be a side hustle. So I'm an IT guy, although now I'm on disability, so I have more time to dedicate to what was a hobby before to be more I still would call it a hobby though, even though professionally published author and Terror Strikes Coming Soon to a City Near You indeed is a #1 Amazon bestseller. So does that make me a professional author? Well, compared to who? Stephen King? J.K. Rowling? Absolutely not, obviously. So it's all relative and of that sort. So
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Robert, if you share a little bit about yourself and all along those lines, because I love having amazing guests sharing their stories and all along those lines. And I've also got Myra Ayers, who's in the arts world as well, who'll be joining us very shortly. And like I said, we got about an hour to go because it's about an hour and a half show roughly and everything. But share about a little bit about yourself, Robert, and what you've got going on. Because one of the things that I know a lot of people think about, and you might have some thoughts around this, and we kind of alluded to it, is this work-life balance and this notion of trying to balance work and life. And a lot of people fight that and all along those lines. But I'd love to hear your thoughts around that.
Well, my my story, I apologize in advance of fighting a cold, so I'll do my best. But I don't come from the art world. I mean, I'm a writer. I don't have many artistic talents. I was 22 years ago, I was a logical left brain thinker. As you know, I've been studying survival of consciousness for the past 22 years. And my life is very different now than it was 22 years ago, because at that point I thought that the notion that something survived a physical death was, like believing in the tooth fairy or Santa Claus. But I started working with medical doctors and scientists across the United States that studied the mind and consciousness. And I came to believe, and I came to be convinced, that there is something to it. And that kind of evidence comes from many different disciplines, near-death experiences, end-of-life experiences, mediumship, reincarnation, and so forth. It was interesting listening to Nick talk, and he was talking about left brain, right brain, and what I've noticed from my research over the years is that many people who are highly intuitive or psychic or even have mediumistic skills are also right brain thinkers and very artistic. Most of them are either artists or musicians, or writers and so forth. So there might be something to that. My work now is kind of a convergence of science and spirituality. And what I found is that the two are not as different as they seem. If you look at some of, not all, of course, but some physicists today, when they start talking about us coming from a single point of light in the Big Bang and we're all connected through quantum principles, that's essentially what the spiritualists are saying, just using different terms. So, the whole point is that it may not appear in this disjointed world that we are connected, but we are on a deeper level.
Yeah, definitely. There's that notion and everything. One thing that I was curious about, and this is for all of you, is how do you balance that work-life balance? Because like I said, I'm still even at the early 60s, and I still consider myself young at heart and everything, even though that technically, I guess that's middle age and everything. But definitely, I don't have any kids, but I do have my nephews. I do have other folks that I'm engaged with, including some people that I consider to be mentees and all along those lines. But I was just wondering your take on the work-life balance and how you are able to deal with that. And I'm going to bring in Marie, who's an artist as well and everything. But I just wondering your take on the notion of the work-life balance.
I spent the better part of my adult life trying to accumulate toys and material things. And now for the past 20 years, I've been doing the opposite. So I'm much more content than I was when I was in the corporate world. And I have a different perspective on life. Recently I had I live in Florida in Sanibel Island, and about a year and a half ago, we were devastated by a hurricane that kind of wiped out the island, and everybody on the island was going nuts. It's the worst thing that ever happened, and I had the luxury of perspective because I've suffered a lot of tragedy in my life. I lost a daughter, I lost my spouse, and I realized that this was just stuff, I was surprisingly calm throughout the whole thing, despite my house being obliterated, because, I have that perspective or advantage, if you want to call it, of knowing what truly matters. And material stuff, as they say, doesn't go with you, but love and compassion do. So that's kind of how I live my life now.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense and everything. Marie, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right. If you introduce yourself, I've met you a couple of times through Clubhouse and some of the other apps, and I know you're involved in the arts as well. So if you'll share a little bit of your story, because part of what we do on the online dinner party is learn about each other and life lessons learned. So if you'll share a little bit about yourself, and we'll continue the conversation.
Well, Mark, I am so sorry. I don't mean to be here because I'm on the computer. I wanted to do the show on the computer, right. And I'm there. It says only the host can see you, and the host may add you to the stage at any time and be ready. Then over to the left, I see myself. So I just played with my iPhone, but I have to sit here and hold it like this. I'm really kind of confused. I thought, that you sent me the link and everything is working, but at my slot was 1:00.
Right.
And so did I not do something or
no? You're perfectly fine. Like I said, the way the online dinner party works, it's different people sharing their life stories and what they're all about. So like I said, you can come on the computer, but I do not see you on the computer. I do see you on the iPhone and everything. So you just want to share a little bit about your own artistic career and all along those lines, because that's part of what the whole nature of what we do is talk about how we've learned lessons in life and some of the positivity that goes on in life. That's kind of the way the online dinner party works.
Oh, okay. This has caught me kind of unaware. I thought that you and I were going to do the show. I've never done something like this. I've always done everything, personal on Zoom when I've been doing the talk shows as a guest, and I've never done it like this. So what would you like of me? I'm going to hold my iPhone because obviously it's not working on the computer, but it looks good. So
yeah, it looks good on the phone. So if you just want to share a little bit about your own story and your work, and we can do another one later on Zoom that'll be more one-on-one and all along those lines. But definitely you just share a little bit about yourself and your life.
Well, I'm an actor, and I was in a rehab because I volunteer for the homeless. I'm their publicist. They're published, and and I take all the photographs, and then I write the stories, and I do everything. It's very time consuming, and it's wonderful. I do this for two different groups, and I also feed them as well as, and I've even cooked for 75 people. And so my foot got caught in the musician's cord while I was filming, and I landed in the hospital. Long story, I was there for all told 4.5 months. And it does something to you. You're in a little room all by yourself. And, I didn't have my earphones with me. I had nothing. So, and then in the other side of the room, there's a little roommate, and, they're sick. And oh my God, you really have to look at yourself. And I ended up taking lemons and making major lemonade. I sang, because I've got an operatic voice. I sang for 60 people twice with no makeup, hair in a ponytail, that ugly robe. And I sang Happy Birthday to 2 big birthday parties. And then people were flooding. They were flooding my room saying, oh my God, you're this, you're that, you're this or that. And if I would have known it was going to be like that, I would have had somebody film it, and it would have gone viral because I didn't look too good in that ugly robe. So that's that story. And so I had 2 surgeries. Okay, won't go into that. We'll go into something. But anyway, I came out the other end because I knew I would. And everything in life is a lesson. It's a chance for us to grow, a chance for us to learn. Is it painful? Yeah, it really is. But sometimes that's where you learn your greatest lessons, through pain. And unfortunately, that's how we learn them sometimes, unfortunately. And then the other night, for the first time, I'm with the biggest repertory company here in Los Angeles. And I haven't been on that stage for 6 months. And because I'm recouping and I do the exercises like I did today. And I did a monologue that I was really nervous going on the stage, and it was beyond successful. So I'm going to do it again Monday night, and then I'm entering it in a monologue contest. And this particular stage is called Theater West. I'm from Los Angeles, you guys. I'm looking at all of you. And if you ever get to Los Angeles, come to the Theater West. It's very, very well known. Maybe I'll be appearing in something, who knows? And also, I'm a film actress, but I haven't been able to submit for anything because right now my body couldn't take a 12-hour day. And sometimes, it is a 12-hour day. We just never know. I'm also a professional obedience dog trainer. And some of my clients include Mrs. Bob Hope. Now, they both have passed away. And I had a how-to video that sold on Amazon called Mare's KISS Method, Obedience Dog Training and Safety Drills. And then Bruce was wonderful. Bruce Springsteen was wonderful. And Patty, his wife, and their children. I used to feed the children doggy biscuits that were homemade. And they didn't know it. They loved it. And Robert Downey Jr., as you all know, he's up for an Academy Award. I sent him a note. He was my client. Let me see what else. Let me see what else. My film. I did a film, a short, and I presented it originally in a festival, play festival, at Theater West, the company, and I ended up. I starred in it. I cast somebody opposite me. It was my own production. And we were on location for 3 days, but it was called Westfest, and we were on location for 3 days, and it won. See, now it's won 12 awards, festival awards. So I've given you a thumbnail sketch.
Well, that's a good job and everything. I appreciate that. That's a great sketch and definitely gives us a lot of insight, like a lot of people have done here on the show. You actually raised something that I alluded to earlier, but I'd love to hear your thoughts as well as others, because we know that writer's strike was recently held and all in that space. How important do you think it is for artists or just general people in the creative space in general to be activists? Because we did see a number of artists that got involved in activism, and I'd love to hear from
Right.
Joseph and Nick as well. But Marie, I'll start out with you. How important do you think it is for
Well,
artists to be
okay,
activists?
I'm Screen Actors Guild, of course. We have to stand up for ourselves and our rights. Now, I could not do any of the marching. I could not, and it was horrible that I couldn't. But I did. I gave the cause a lot of publicity over Instagram and Facebook, and then when people would post something, I would share it, blah blah blah. But whatever union you are in, and if you are in that union, that's your responsibility to stand up for it and speak for it and do whatever physical action you need to do to stand up for your rights. And that's my take on it.
I appreciate that. Joseph, what's your take on it, the role of artists as activists? And I'd love to hear Nick's thoughts, because we know there are a lot of artists activists here in North Carolina, but I'll start with Joseph and everything. But how important do you think it is for there to have that art activism kind of space?
Well, yes, all three of my two of my three currently internationally available books indeed are activist based, also, sub storyline there. Terror Strikes has, as you said, political undertones as well as religious undertones in it. And my other one, Christitutionalist Politics, is about Christians actually being Christian activists, but not Bible thumpers beating people over the head about it, to return to the faith rather than the casual couch Christians we've seen too much of late. So I think that's important. And to what she was saying is, I do have a friend who is an actor. He's in many things. He hurt his ankle the other day, so he's kind of laid up right now. So he's busy writing a couple of books while he's laid up. But to what you said, a lot of people don't understand. Acting is really a lot of waiting around for the right time and conditions to shoot that 5-minute scene. Like you said, a 12-hour day and 15 minutes of material might come out of that 12 hours.
Right.
That is very true and everything. Nick, what's your take on it? Because like I said, there are a number of art activists. I know that I am friends with Pierce Freelon, and they're definitely there involved in that space, as is Nina and a number of others, even Dasan, who is a poet activist in my mind and everything. But I just wanted your take on the importance of artists being activists.
I think art is a powerful tool to just kind of cut right to the human soul without, having to read, scientific study after scientific study of like, oh, why is this bad? Why is this good? There's that human element that, as soon as you kind of see that painting or, witness that sculpture or, a poem or something, it really kind of cuts to it. And it's a way of empathizing with other people. I think we all do live in our own little worlds a little bit, and then seeing what other people are all about, it's so hard. But I think art can really kind of just like cut the fat on that and get right to it. I know I myself have a hard time like with my personal like artistic language being like an activist, because I question who am I, what is my story, and what story can I kind of tell, and like it's I'm not just kind of pandering or like being a white savior or this, that, and the other. I know, kind of going back to the Writers Guild thing, something I do kind of play around with is technology and art. I know AI is on the horizon for visual and written word and so many other things, and there seems to be a big backlash. And I love playing devil's advocate here, but I think there's a way to make art alongside of AI and use it as a tool instead of just trying to limit it and being like don't make art. I think especially, so I paint and I very much use the camera and the photograph in my works, and I talk about it like I make visual references to the camera versus the human eye, and that's a big thing. Like painters and photographers, I don't say they've been butting heads, but it's a conversation. when the camera became a little bit more mainstream and usable, you saw painting just kind of take off in a whole another direction, like from impressionism to post-impressionism, and then like it was an explosion of like abstract art where painting kind of turned inward into the human psyche, while photography could kind of take on the role of describing the outer world, and like portraiture and landscapes and all that. They still existed a little bit in painting, but I think painting responded that way by turning inward and kind of talking about the emotionality of humans, something the camera can and can't do, but it's a little bit harder. But, previous to that, painters, did a lot of portraits and, Bible stories and other, things that just kind of put that out there. So I think that's also part of activism as well, is like learning how to paint or sculpt or create your art with technology, not against technology, because it's happening and you can't really stop it. So I think learning to grow about it and talk about it is key.
And Marie, along those same kind of ways and everything, I'd love to hear your thoughts, because I do remember within that strike and all along those lines, there were a number of actors and I think directors that were concerned that AI was going to eventually come and take those jobs. And there was this whole notion of licensing where voices can be used by AI and all in that space. I was just wondering your thoughts around that, because I did hear a lot of people, both in Clubhouse and in other spaces, that were concerned about AI, even to what Nick's talking about, taking their jobs and all in that way. But I do think that it is a tool, because like I said, I've got a dad that is an artist and he definitely believes in using a variety of tools, including sound and other things. So I do think that it is a tool that can be used, but I just wondering your take on that as one that has been in the acting field for a number of years.
Oh, are you talking to me?
Yes, talking to you, Marie.
Oh,
Yes.
oh, you said Marie, and I went, oh, is there a Marie here? It's Marae. That's okay.
Marie, my fault.
I answered to everything. It's Marae. It's going to be very beneficial for major scenes where, like with extras. But like for me and what I do, if I do a show, I'm going to be covered by a contract. Okay. And my agent will go over it. So I'm going to be protected, and they're not going to be able to use what they did, what they portrayed of me or filmed. I'm not that technical about it. I'm still learning about it, but they're not going to be able to use it unjustly. And because I'm protected by the union and the contract. But like the gentleman said, we have to advance. We've got to go with it. And it is very beneficial in filming in many areas, in big scenes where they can't get all the extras, but then the extras must be paid in order to use their image. So it's contractual. And each person has to be responsible for themselves and make sure that they're covered. But there's a lot, I was doing a lot of listening to people who had knowledge about it, and we voted on it. And I think I do feel it's going to work out, and it's going to save time and might even make us more money in the long run. At least I hope so.
Well, Bruce Willis is an example of that, as I said in the chat. Due to his aging and health concerns, which with me with health issues, I can understand and appreciate, he has sold his image rights, his likeness rights to the studio for cash now, for his likeness to be used in perpetuity. So yeah, there's that versus those who worry a studio might sneak language in a contract you don't catch that allows them to steal your likeness for future use. That's where, like in the 1981, the movie Looker, with Susan Day of the Partridge Family and Albert Finney, way ahead of its time, was on this. Looker, about what we're talking about now, as well as, of course, Al Pacino's kind of quasi follow up or remake called Simone or Sim 1, depending on how you want to pronounce it, because it's spelled S1M0NE.
Yeah.
Great movies if you get a chance to see that, which shows you the behind the scenes technical aspects as well as the drama unfolding now, because we're here in that day and age now.
Yeah,
Right.
no doubt about that and everything. Just really quickly, Robert, one of the things that I've been curious about, like I said, we still got about another 30 minutes or so to go and everything, but there's been in my mind, and you kind of alluded to it even with your thoughts around religion and around faith and everything, this movement around people coming more in tune with their faith walk, no matter what that faith walk is, whether they're Christians or whether they're Muslim or Hindu or a number of others. And it does seem like a lot of people think that we have to be in tune and aligned on a lot of different levels. And we know that there's issues around mental health, and a lot of people want to get physically more healthy. I know I need to get on an exercise regimen, and I'm just being honest with myself and all along those lines. And definitely there have been folks that have wanted to get more emotionally in tune and spiritually in tune. So do you think that we are having people that are moving in a direction of wanting to be more in tune in those four areas in general and everything? Because it does seem like it's becoming more popular these days. But I'd love to hear your take on that, Robert.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's I mean, in the 20 some odd years I've been doing this work, I've seen a definite shift, and people are moving more to spirituality. Now, part of it are people like myself, the baby boomers, who never really thought about things that they're thinking of now. You know, what happens after, physical death, and also, what's the meaning of life? So questions that they never contemplated before, they start to now. With spirituality and religion, I mean, I found over the years that I got, I'm not religious at all, but I became more spiritual. I just think of spirituality as religion without the rules. I mean, essentially, the founders of all the organized religions today came out of the ages of mysticism, where they were doing things that would be considered new age now, but they're anything but, so I think that, I think we're moving in the right direction. It's a slow process, but people are more receptive. Listen, 22 years ago, when we used to get phone calls at our foundation about, some of the stuff we talk about now, people would be whispering on the phone. You could barely hear them. So why are you whispering? Because, God forbid that somebody overheard the conversation, they'd be labeled or judged or ostracized. And even, professionals today, we work with a lot of PhDs and scientists that have really put their whole careers in jeopardy because they've been kind of banished from the mainstream because of the fringe, they consider fringe work, that they're doing. But I really commend them for their fortitude. And I believe that in any position, whether it's science or you're talking about art or you're talking about music, I think that there's an obligation for people to give back by supporting, causes that, others, once you have a platform, use it, I mean, so I really give a lot of gratitude to these stars that, and famous people that support, hunger and,
Right.
and peace and so forth, because
Right.
they're doing the right thing. Of course, the skeptic will say, well, they're just doing it because it's a write-off. I was one of the people that questioned everything. But what I found is that when it comes down to it, especially in my genre, working with the bereaved, you strip down to nothing. And what you find is that the only thing that matters is helping other people, because that's how it gives you some comfort, right? I mean, buying a new car doesn't do it for me anymore, So I totally flip my way of thinking, and so have a lot of people that I come across.
And Marie, or
Murray.
and everything, I mispronounced it again, but you have actually worked with and it's a very important issue there in California, but what drew you to want to help those that are dealing with the homeless situation? Because I do know that it's a big issue there in the California area. So what drew you to want to
Oh
help
God!
folks?
Oh well, it's all over. Okay, it's more in New York. You have to in New York you have to step over. At least we don't have to do that here. I'm like Robert. I'm not into religion. I was born and raised a Catholic. You know, I bless everybody who believes in that. It doesn't work for me, which is okay. I'm a student and have been for almost 15 years, at least 13. I know, of law of attraction, that which is likened to itself is drawn. And I'm on 2 Zoom meetings every month, and I speak and we share law of attraction. But what drew me to the homeless, I go to Church of Religious Science, which is non-denominational, okay? And I found out about it, and I just was interested. I said, well, I'll go see what it's like. And I served, and we served 150 people that first day. And I went, oh, this is interesting. I want to be a part of this because I'm a person, I give, and I think actors, that's what we do. We give of ourselves and our emotions. So that's just another way, a faucet for me to pour out and to give. And so I loved it. So I joined that group, and I was with that group. And then there was another group that served even more people. And they said, would you be willing to be with us? I said, yeah. And then I love, and I'm big on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and go to my page, you guys. Anyway, on Instagram especially. And I joined it, and it just gave me such a feeling I cannot tell you. It did more for me than I did for them. And I looked and I studied the faces, and they were so appreciative. And it's just the greatest feeling in the world to be able to do something for other people. Because when we do, we're really doing it for ourselves. And that's, I hope I answered your question.
No, you definitely answered the question. I was actually just thinking I have a brother because as Nick knows, my dad is an artist. We talked about that a little bit here on this show, but it's me and my younger brother Malik, and he actually has a slingshot club. So if y'all know the Batmobile, that's what I like to think of it as, that Batmobile looking like a car and everything along those lines. But his slingshot club actually gave to a area that would be considered the inner city here in all along those areas that way, and all in that place. I can't think of the name of the community, but they fed literally 75 families during Thanksgiving, and I think they also went to Shirley Teaser's church during Christmas and made some donations as well. But like I said, their hobby is those kind of sports cars. So how important, Nick, is the empathy to you? And then I'd love to hear from everybody else the importance of empathy in their own lives.
Yeah. Interesting. I'm going to kind of tie that into this next step I'm taking in my art phase, where I am trying to be more of a painter and, be more expressive and kind of, I don't say use that empathy, but, be open about myself, as well as hearing about what others bring in. I think something that my art particularly does is a lot of people see it and they just kind of stop and think and wonder, and it's a little bit of a head. So like it's almost a conversation starter in so many ways that I hear about them and then their thoughts about it. And I think it's a good way to open up and connect with other people than just be, again, some like decoration on the wall. And I think that's what good art is, whether you're sharing your story or you're kind of holding up a mirror to society. I think art does that a lot, and it allows people to share and be vulnerable, either both as the artist or the viewer, is great, especially also, events and art events as well that bring community together, so we're all not just kind of painting and doing our own thing. I know especially in like the visual arts, it's easy to be very secluded, but bringing other people out and just kind of sharing ideas and techniques as well, it's just a great way to bond and meet people. And I think that that's what creativity is you steal other people's ideas, but in an empathetic way where you talk to them and get to know them as a human being, and it kind of brings the story alive there. So
Yeah, that makes sense. Before I hear some of the other thoughts about empathy, I did have another question for you, Nick. Do you ever get frustrated, because you kind of alluded to it earlier, when you feel that there are arts administrators that maybe don't have enough of a sympathy or empathy for the artists? Because I have heard that conversation going on as well, where sometimes there are people that are in arts administration that maybe aren't artists themselves or don't have a understanding of artists and don't give the artists their just dues and everything. And I think I've seen that in the festival scene, where sometimes artists aren't paid what they should be in terms of music, and sometimes the artists are placed in kind of interesting situations, like when the band is literally on top of them and all along those lines. And as an MC, I can relate to that, and I can definitely enjoy the music, but I can also understand y'all's issue as well, because you don't want the as you're trying to sell the art, to have it drowned out by the music and all in that environment. So I just wanted your thoughts around whether arts administrators are doing enough to have a understanding of the artists they are working with.
Yeah. I think in Durham especially, there is, and it's not everywhere, where Durham in the Triangle area became cool because it had an authentic feeling art scene. And I think a lot of people are using that and not really supporting that. The arts are kind of getting pushed more and more out of the downtown to make room for businesses and corporations. So like they're saying, come to Durham, we have a lot of culture, and yet, nobody's heard of the Third Friday Art Walk around here, but they live in Durham, or, they, kind of have art. It's more of a prop. It's a little fake than actually supporting it. It's like, look, here's the arts, but, don't pay attention to them too much. We're more of decoration. And that's definitely how it feels there, where if I'm trying to get the right words out, but I think I've gotten the meaning across. Where
I think you've got the meaning across, and it's actually interesting you said that, because I've done a couple of talks, because one of the places I work at is the Hayti Heritage Center. I could be heading there in about an hour, because they've got I think it's yoga today. Yoga is the class today, and all along those lines. But that is one of my complaints. What you just said is that there are a number of people that are part of that new gentrification have moved to Hayti or moved to the Hayti district. But if you ask them what Hayti is, because it's a converted church, they'll say it's a church, or they won't know that it is a art venue, or won't even bother to explore, to come out to visit, to see what it is, even though there's a marquee in front that says that there's Candlelight Series, which is, of course, is a national series of those concerts with the candles and everything, or that there's a jazz band performing or a poetry event. But they'll go up there to sit to the KFC or something else along those lines, but not necessarily do the other exploration. But definitely that's something that's fascinating.
I was about to say, I think Durham has been very good at so many art scenes have kind of come and gone. And I think that's really sad, because like there's such a good spirit there that like so many people are opening great places, but the arts admin and the city at large isn't doing anything to like keep them around. They want them to open, but then they're like, all right, good luck, instead of kind of helping to protect. I'm not talking about like handouts either, but like, even if it's just like some sort of like district or something like that, where it kind of does help. Because I mean, it's nice, and people move here for that reason, and then don't actually go out and experience it. So it adds a vibrancy to our culture, and it makes us more attractive than just moving to Condoville, USA. There's actually something to do here, and people to see, and a feeling about the city than just the Tim Burton like white picket fence kind of suburbia. So that's my biggest complaint, is just like there's no like support once places are open to help keep them around and figure out the problems that they're facing. So it's a survivalist.
Well, I want to kind of go off of what Nick was saying. Is when economic times are harder, the arts are always going to suffer. People need to worry more about food on their family's table than the available money, disposable income to buy one of Nick's paintings, or even my books, which are fairly inexpensive by comparison, or to see a movie. I love going to the movies, but movie tickets are out of this world these days, especially if you're what in like New York, it's $20 a ticket. I go on free popcorn Tuesday where the ticket's only $5 because it's just too expensive.
True.
We have to prioritize our budget. And you said empath, Mark, which made me immediately think of Star Trek: The Next Generation, which also reminded me because in this serious time we got to keep our sense of humor, and I can never pass on a lame pun. Joke I like to tell. I used to be a psychic large rather than a psychic medium, but now I'm just psychotic. So
Okay, we all are, thank God.
Yeah, we all have a little bit of that psychotic aspect of us, and all along those lines and everything. One of the other things that I know we talked about on a couple of these online dinner parties, and I'd love to hear y'all's thoughts about this because it is something that I think impacts artists in general, and definitely kind of plays even to the empath conversation. But how much of a problem is it being your own worst critic and everything? Because I know that whether it is jobs, and I've definitely gone for those jobs, or is it even going into relationships? And like I said, I'm in my early 60s and still in that single space, but I know that there have been times that I have literally talked myself out of situations, whether it was a creative job or a regular job or a relationship and all along those lines. So how do you counter that inner critic? Because we all have that inner critic and we're all notoriously bad for letting that inner critic win. So, Murray, I'll let you go first, but I'd love to hear from
My
Robert.
God, you said my name right. Thank
Got
you.
it right. But I'd love to hear your thoughts.
I'm teasing you, Mark. Well, you know what? I've got to say this. My all-time favorite book, besides all the law of attraction ones I read, is The Four Agreements. And one of the chapters is, and as an actor, a performer, blah, blah, do your best. Okay. And that's all you can do. And could I do it better? Maybe an hour from now or the next day? You may, okay, but that's later. But at this moment, I did my best. And a couple of times on a couple of my auditions, I know that I sucked. Okay. But I still did my best. And it's hard to let go, because especially actors, we want validation. We want love. We want, oh, you were good. Oh, you were this. Like the other night on stage, I was so nervous because I hadn't been for 6 months, and yes, it was highly successful, but it could have gone the other way too. And there would have been a lesson there. Okay, but I did my best at the moment. That's what I would have had to say. I did my best at the moment. I'll go back to the drawing board. I'll revamp, rework it, and go out there and do it again. Because, the biggest lessons you learn is when you try something and you fail. Look at Graham Bell, look what he went through to do what he did. And how many times he failed. And if he hadn't have failed all those different times, he wouldn't have achieved what he achieved. So that's why the Four Agreements, and I love all the chapters, but I love that one because I say to myself, I did my best at the moment. Okay? And there will be another moment. Yeah. That's it for me.
Appreciate it. Robert, how about yourself? How do you deal with that inner critic? We all have it, and definitely sometimes we even have it when we're going through hardships, including grieving and all along those lines. But how do you deal with that inner critic?
Yeah, I'm my own worst enemy. I've done hundreds and hundreds of interviews over the years. I've been doing a radio show since 2005. I've never listened to one thing because I can't stand the way I sound. And then when you talk about empathy, I can make the argument that having some degree of empathy, experiencing the feeling of others, is essential to being a human being.
Right.
If you look at the worst characters in our history, they have no empathy. We do 4 grief retreats per year. And these are gatherings of people that have suffered various losses, and I have various practitioners there and grief professional and so forth. And actually, in the Netflix Surviving Death series, I gave them access to film one of these retreats. By the way, Joseph was talking about, the nature of acting. I'm not an actor, but Netflix.
We all are actors, okay?
Yeah. And Netflix filmed 70 hours with us, 70. And that was edited down to 25 minutes of content. So I got my taste of what that's like, and I've been burned over the years many, many times. I've been ambushed by news stations and in various documentaries. So, I mean, I sat down with Netflix for 4.5 hours before, we agreed to do it, going over contracts like Murray, mentioned. And, but I think what my point was, when I come home from these retreats, which I run, takes me 2 or 3 days to recover, because you have the experiencing the feeling of others, which is, is empathy, can be devastating, and it makes you not function, and eventually I rebound and you go back for the next one. So I think it's essential, and there are some people that don't criticize themselves, going back to your other point. I mean, I can mention some in politics, but people. There are very few people that are totally comfortable with themselves. I mean, I'm certainly not, and I'm always criticizing everything that I do, and even when I write a book, I think it's good while I'm writing it, and then afterwards I say, oh no, this is a piece of shit. I can't, and then I give it to somebody else. I say, no, this is good, and have to talk me, So I totally relate to that, and I could just imagine what artists go through after putting your heart and soul into something and then questioning your work. I mean, that's rough.
Well, you've got to grow a thicker skin,
That's what
even
people say.
to your own inner critic, like I discuss in How to Write a Book and Get It Published, because I know there are a lot of people with some great stories that have something to offer the world, but that inner critic prevents them. Well, I don't really know what to do, or this isn't really good enough. How to Write a Book and Get It Published helps them get past that. And I say in that book, there comes a time things could always be better, right? Or different. I go over my books all the time before publication date nears, rewording this, shortening that, lengthening, right? But there comes a point where you have to say, okay, this is now a deadline, and I have to meet that as a deadline and go forward, or you indeed will stay stuck in your own muck for the rest of your life.
Right.
No, I definitely want to get to the inner critic and how definitely Nicholas handled it, all of those lines. But before I get to that, this is for both Murray and for Joseph and everything. But one of the things that a lot of people are afraid of when it comes to this notion of writing or even acting is rejection. Because I know tons of actors get rejection notices all the time. I don't know how many rejection notices authors get, because a lot of times they have told me they've got hundreds, if not thousands, of rejections. And there is this lovely word that I know we have a hard time saying, and we also don't like hearing it as well, which is that word no. It's only 2 letters, but it does resonate with a lot of people. A lot of people don't like getting that rejection. So how do you deal with that rejection? And this is both, like I said, for Joseph and Murray, because I know that actors and authors get rejected all the time, but even artists get rejected. And I'm even sure that bereavement counselors that are trying to do lectures probably get rejected as well. So it's actually for everybody. How do y'all deal with that rejection?
Well, I'll go ahead. Murray?
Oh, okay. Next. Rejection. You can't take it personally.
Mm-hmm.
You can only do your best. And you get a no. Does it hurt? Does it sting? Yeah. We're all human. But you must find a way within yourself to know that it was a learning process. You did it. The main thing is you showed up and you did it and you did your best. Okay. Then you let it go You go have an ice cream, dairy free for me, and you move on to the next one and the next one. And that's what you do. And you've got to find it within yourself to love yourself so much that you know you did your best and you let it go. Because I've certainly had many rejections, and you just move on, and you go on to the next, and that's what you have to do. It's a process. It's a growing and a learning process, but you've got to let go. Got to get low, let go of that. It's the past. You already did it. It's in the can. Now move on.
You gotta learn that for whatever reason in life, not everybody's going to like you, nor should you care if everybody doesn't like you.
Right.
Right? And you're not right for every part.
No.
And in the publishing industry, like I go into how to write a book and get it published, 99.99999 ad infinitum % of all people submitting a book will be rejected because they want to go with the established stable of horses they've got, proven that make them money. But today, there is self and assisted publishing options.
Right.
So your book can still come out. And again, like thicker skin. Again, not everybody's going to like you and your work. So reviews, I go into that. You're going to get some negative ones.
Right.
You've got to shake it off. Unless if somebody is saying your grammar is bad a million times, well, then take that criticism to heart. You might need a better editor. But, that's a technical correction that you yourself may need to improve upon, as opposed to someone's opinion of your delivery and main content.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. What about you, Nick, and everything? Because like I said, I know artists get rejected all the time and everything. So what is your take on that and this notion of rejection? And I'd also love to hear, because I didn't get to your thoughts around the inner critic as well. But definitely, what is your thoughts around rejection? Because I know with having family members that are in the arts that, not everybody buys your art and not every festival takes your art as well. But how do you handle that rejection notice?
I cast a wide net and I expect to hear a lot of no's. I just kind of expect no's. I know last year I got a grant and I was like so surprised that I got the grant. I was like, I thought that was a guaranteed no. So I think that's always better than when you're kind of hoping for something and you don't get it versus just, definitely try your hardest, but cast a wide net for sure. So, speaking of using ChatGPT as a tool, like ChatGPT has been helping me write a lot of applications to stuff so I can get more stuff out there. Because, a lot of it's like some just copy pasta stuff that you change and tweak some things here and there. So, you just kind of cast a wide net and hope for, one yes is my thing.
As how do you do with that inner critic? That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, the inner critic thing. I think that it's a good tool again. I think those people who do have a good inner critic, that's because they have good taste. I think if you love all the work that you do, you're a little delusional.
There's that. That's a good counter. That's yin and yang. Right.
Don't let it stop you from working, though. I know so many people that their inner critic stops them from starting, and I think that's when it's unhealthy. But in my drawing group, especially the people that keep coming back and they keep asking me, I say, don't worry about the end product. If you're trying to make a drawing that looks good, it's not, you're gonna kind of miss the mark a little bit. Have art that kind of has a purpose, like be more interested in looking at your subject and exploring your subject than, all right, how's this gonna look and how's my paintings gonna look? And I think that's something, you can bring to any medium, like writing. It's like, don't worry about writing a good book. Write about exploring your subject. Don't worry about looking good on the screen if you're an actor. look about exploring and developing the character that you are inhabiting. That's why we're in the arts, is to kind of learn and explore and experiment with life.
Right.
We're not here to make pretty pictures and, you know, books that sell. And I think that's the good mark of a character. So like when I look at my paintings personally, you know, I'm always going to see things that I can improve upon, but I'm like, all right, that's for the next painting. The next painting is, you know,
Right.
kind of, you know, improving on that step. And that's, you know, everyone always asks me like, oh, do you always feel bad when you sell paintings? I was like, kind of, as soon as I'm done painting my paintings, I like, my relationship with that painting is over. I move on to the next one, and I do my best and explore that subject and try to gain as much information as I can. And then when that painting has kind of taught me all it can, I stop and I move on to the next one. I think it's
Okay.
that's who we are as artists and entrepreneurs and creatives. We're looking to explore our world more. So I think being an inner critic in that sense is more or less like, all right, seeing what I've learned, what can I, like, you know, now that I'm here and I've learned and I've gained this new information, there's always going to be more to learn. So it kind of gives you a good arrow to point in the right direction of like, what's the next step after this?
Yeah,
So-
Nick has the correct, in my opinion, and proper perspective. Like I said in the comments, Nick, it's great that you're a realist in all senses. Because people do things for the right reason, and then there are people who do things for the wrong reasons. If you're writing a book with the expectation that you're going to be the next J.K. Rowling, you're writing your book for the wrong reason.
No doubt about that and everything. One of the things, and we've only got a few more minutes, about 10 minutes to go and everything, but one of the things I get everybody to do on this show and everything, and by the way, I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. Hopefully I can get y'all to come back on another show, or maybe we'll do a one-on-one, Murray or anybody else here as well. But definitely, this is the online dinner party, and I love having these kind of conversations. But at the end, I always give my guests, and I'll actually jump off the screen for a minute while I can throw on my sweater so I can get to my next job and everything, a chance to share how they can be reached. And one of the things I love doing on these shows is people given a chance to express their message of positivity and hope, because Pod TV, formerly IBM TV, and all along those lines, is a worldwide network, and Nick Palveda and Kim Calhoun that created it. Definitely have people watching in India and Africa and a number of other places around the world and all along those lines. So I am definitely a person that believes in positivity. We've got enough negativity and division in the world, so I like to have this as a platform for giving positive messages. So I love doing that on the show and giving all my guests that opportunity and all along those lines. So I actually we'll actually close out with the lady this time and all in that space. So I'll start off with Nick and go around and close out with Murray and all in that space. But Nick, if you'll share how you can be reached, and if folks are in the Durham area, how they can hear about your art, and if you have any message of positivity and hope, and then we'll go to Joseph, then Robert, and then close out with Murray and everything. But basically how you can be reached and your message of positivity and hope. And like I said, y'all might see me off the screen, but that does not mean I'm not listening and all along those lines. But definitely, if you'll do that, I'd greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, as Mark said, I'm in Durham, North Carolina. You can reach me in person at the Golden Belt Art Studios in Durham, North Carolina. I'm in Studio 23. Come out for Third Fridays, which is the Durham's monthly art walk. So if you can meet in person, that's awesome. If you can't, I'm on Instagram at Art of Nick Dahlstrom. So and that's all of my handles. So my website's at Art of Nick Dahlstrom. All the social mediums, but I'm definitely more active on Instagram and kind of post there. So yeah, come reach, follow, message, comment, all that fun stuff. But yeah, and my message of positivity is kind of banking off of what I just said. Is like, go and approach life with curiosity. Go and do something and be curious about something, like whether you're painting and you just want to learn more about what you're painting, or go and taking a bike ride to go and see the world as much as you can. Approach life with curiosity, and be willing to change your mind if you can. And that's it.
forgot who he said was up next.
Joseph, you can be up next.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Nick. Thank you. Nick, I think you should add to your resume, you are a master of karate because you're a golden belt.
Yeah.
Ba-dum-bum.
There actually is an artist down the hall from me. He's like into like samurai sword fighting, and he's got like a bunch of samurai swords. So I think he's the master of karate.
But as for me, you can find me easiest at josephmleonard.us. That's my main personal author site. It looks like Leonard. It's not French. It's actually Polish somehow. Leonard without an O. josephmleonard.us. And or check out my podcast, Constitutionalist Politics, available anywhere podcasts on 15 different platforms. So virtually anywhere you find podcasts, you could check me out those two locations. And yeah, you could see in my background, if you see this on video, I'm in a southern suburb of Detroit. You can see the Detroit RenCen back there as the Detroit landscape. As much as I hate the winters, I do choose to stay here.
Okay, I guess it's my turn. Website for our foundation is foreverfamilyfoundation.org. I write a blog on beyondthefivesenses.com. My books are The Medium Explosion and My Life Here and There. I don't know what else to tell you. My email is robert@foreverfamilyfoundation.org. And I would just like to say that what I try to do, recognizing that there's nothing, we live under this illusion of permanence that's instilled upon us. And I live my life now. I wake up every day as if it was going to be my last day. So if I need to say something to somebody, I say it. If I need to do something, I'll do it. I don't plan. I take it as it comes. I have no expectations. So I think that if you live your life that way, you can lead a fuller life than if not.
Before I get to Murray and everything, and then we'll close out with maybe a PSA here and there and everything. But I'm just wondering, because the thing that I didn't get to you, Robert, and everything, how important do you think it is? And I think that a lot of artists would agree with this as well, to be connected to the ancestors and to those that have gone on. I know there are a number of artists, including artists here that are friends of mine that have passed on. I still resonate with them, even though they're not on the planet. Baba Chuck Davis, and I know that Nick knows him. I still feel that he is in my presence, even though it's been several years since he passed away. And there are a number of others that have passed away that were artists or family members that I still feel connected with them, even though they are no longer here. But I just wanted your take on the importance of having that connection to the ancestors.
Yeah, well, if you look through history, many of our greatest artists and musicians and writers and scientists got inspiration from information that they don't know how they got it, but they just described either in a dream or some sort of thought or vision. It appeared, and they acted upon that. So I think that we're only aware of our known five senses, but there are a lot more senses than we only see 1% of the universe. So I think that it is important. I was not one. I really thought I had no intuition, but once I kind of bought into it, all sorts of strange things, started happening. So I think it is very important. As I mentioned earlier, a lot of people back in the day and thousands of years ago regularly communed with their ancestors. As a matter of fact, there were tribes that before they would start their day, every day they would meet and everybody would talk about their dream visions, and they would base their daily activities upon the collective information that they received. I can get into all sorts of things we don't have time for now, but there's certainly a lot of evidence that shows that our minds, or if you choose to call it our soul or our consciousness, can act independently of our physical brain. And there's evidence for this, and I've participated in countless research projects on this. And if our minds can act independently of our brains, it's not that far-fetched to believe that once our brains are gone, once our bodies are gone, that something continues on.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And we'll have to have you come back and go deeper dive and that's on another online dinner party or some of the other shows. But Murray and everything, if you'll share how you can be reached and any message of positivity and hope that you would like to share, and then we'll get
Well,
ready to
if
out of here.
and Nick, I would love for you to see my paintings. I haven't painted in quite a while, but anyway, I relate to you as that kind of an artist, and I know you're painting. You got to walk and say, okay, I'm done, I'm finished. And anyway, yeah. So I love that I got to meet you. Anyway, you can reach me because my name is up there, MARAYAYRES. Okay, just go on Instagram. And I would love for all of you to scroll because I have some videos. I have to get, I get rid of a lot of them because they take up too much space on my iPhone. But I've got a couple of reels. I've got a lot of stills of my acting stuff, a lot of foodies, and I think my Instagram is a very exciting site because it's everything. It's like a stew. You put everything in it. Even if it's vegan or vegetarian, you put all kinds of ingredients in it because I get bored with just one thing. I like to have a lot of things going. But anyway, just look me up on Instagram and have fun scrolling, and you'll enjoy. You'll see my neighbor's cat that loves to come here and I give him food, and he takes a nap with me. And when I meditate, he's there with me. You'll see him. You'll see squirrels. You'll see many things. You won't be bored with my Instagram. And then I switch over, I push it over to Facebook, but Facebook doesn't mean as much to me, but I have to do it. And I don't care for Twitter. I really don't. And I'm registered with LinkedIn. I don't bother with it. And people always, be my friend. And I go, yes. But I don't engage in Instagram at all. Very little in Twitter. I use all just professional. It's Instagram. So I hope you all get to look at it. And maybe I'll put one of my paintings so that Nick can see it. Okay.
It sounds good, everything. And your message of positivity and hope. And then, like I said, we'll go out with a PSA or two, but I've thoroughly enjoyed our conversation and look forward to having you back all at a later date and everything. But a message of positivity and hope that you'd like to share with our global community, Murray.
Positivity and hope. Okay. You know what? I realized when I was in the rehab, I've always kind of known it. My goal in life, and I think it was before then, but it really solidified. How much love can I give out? Just to walk down the street and look at a person and smile and feel that I'll never see them again. And I had it Monday night because the weather was nasty. So I took an Uber instead. And I made that person feel needed and wanted, and I engaged with him. And that's why I was probably the most popular. They told me at the rehab, I was the most popular person that ever went there because this man named Joe, nobody talked to him. He was the maintenance man. He would, he'd come in every day to say hi to me. And then the lady that would clean all the rooms, the same thing. And yeah. Wow. So how much love can I give out?
Yeah.
And I'm not a Pollyanna, believe me, I'm not. But that's what I do. And I've learned many, many things one of the things I've learned is, and it's a hard one, not to judge, because until I walk in that person's shoes, I can't really judge them, Yeah. But also too, I do not choose to be around toxicity.
Yep.
And that's a choice.
Yep.
And
That is definitely a choice.
Your higher self will go, go away. Don't stay there. I have a girlfriend I'm helping right now. And I said, well, you know what? You're part of the problem, honey. You're there. Okay. Yep. I see you. I see you with your hands. We agree. Yeah. So
definitely agree with you on that and everything. Well, I greatly appreciate that, and that's some very powerful message that you left, Murray, and everything. So definitely stay away from that toxicity and all on those lines.
And it's
Gonna go
all
out with this.
around. It's
Yep.
all around. But I don't, you know what? You got to love yourself so friggin' much that you don't allow it. You don't allow it. You just say, I bless you. I just did this with a friend. I bless you and I send you on your way. Bye-bye.
Yep. Positive message and a great message. And on that note, we're going to get out of here with a PSA of a friend of mine in the financial space and maybe one around education as well. But I've thoroughly enjoyed having y'all on and hope to see y'all back in the near future. But another great online dinner party, and was glad to see all of y'all on here. And I'll see y'all in a return trip. So definitely enjoyed this conversation and look forward to seeing you back later on as well.
Thank you.
No problem.
Are you looking for money-saving strategies for your business and personal finances? Are you tired of working hard every day with little or nothing to show for it? Contact Prosperity Financial Services, LLC right now for your free financial consultation. Call now to reserve yours today, 804-349-8600, 804-349-8600.
I want to thank everyone for coming to the 2020 TAF Awards. This was a show like no other, people. This is the Grammys for dignitaries, educators, and support staff around the state of Oklahoma and worldwide. We cannot do this without the support of the people. So we thank you. I thank you for being such a dedicated supporter to this movement for the Teachers Appreciation Foundation. I thank you.